All right. And three, two, one. What's going on, good people? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to another episode of the Conflict Management Show. We are in a combat sport show, hence the name. So we cover the news, the fights, and the highlights going on in the world of combat sports. And I am your co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Half Man, Half Amazing, the awkward, awesome one. Mr. Main Event, Malik Miles, coming to you live, and my co-host.
The future Hall of Famer, one namer, the oracle of business decisions at the UFC. It's Edon, and we're back one more time with you guys talking about what's going on in the MMA verse. And I wanted to start off because it's a fight night this week.
This, when we talk about cards and we talk about getting the people involved, getting people engaged, this fight card easily could have been a pay-per-view card, in my personal opinion. There's so many, like, I now is it a card where like the casual fan is gonna be like, oh man, I'm gonna be uh watching this fight at like you know on Saturday. I don't think so, right? But however, if you know fights and you consider yourself a fight fan, this is a wonderful fight card. This is a fighter's fight card coming up. It's a sneaky good. It's very a sleeper card because you got a lot of people. You got obviously you got the main event draw, Israel Adesanya, future Hall of Famer, two-time middleweight champion, the king of the middleweights, last Stylebender versus a super like solid contender in Nassourdine Imavov from France. Very, good speed, good boxing, very just overall knows how to mix it up well. Like, who's on a 4-fight unbeaten streak. He's doing like he may be the next champion for France. It's very potential. I think he has the potential to fight. Then you got MVP Michael Venom Page versus Shara Bullet, 10-time a 10-time world kickboxing champion, and just phenomenal striker versus the pirate Shara Bullet, Shara Magomedov, who's got great kicks, very aggressive style. What, 4-0, 5-0 in the UFC? All of them are like by finish, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or a good amount of it are. He's coming off that phenomenal win last time he fought with the double, the double backhand. You know what I mean? After that, what else do we have? We have the Sergey Pavich versus Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Two guys who are knock out of the night worthy people. Both of them have like crazy stats. Like, I was looking it up, right? Like earlier, where I'm just gonna just to put this up, right? Sergey, 18-3, 15 knockouts, 15 first round finishes. Jairzinho Rosenstrike, 13 of his 15 wins are by knockout. 9 of those knockouts are in the first round. And he has like the most like KOs under 30 seconds in UFC history, which is like 3 of them. Remember when he uppercut, like when he hit, he busted out Overeem's lip with a crazy uppercut. So you have both those guys who are. It's gonna be a crazy lights out type fight. You have Vinicius Oliveira versus Said Nurmagomedov, I believe. His name is Said, I think.
Hmm?
The Vinicius, oh man, that guy, even though he's not well known to the mainstream fight fans as of right now, that guy is interesting. You know, 2-0 in the UFC, burst onto the scene off of the Contender Series. That crazy flying knee knockout of Bernardo Sopai, like, that was, I think, when you talk about knockouts of the year, when you talk about people, I think that was like a lot of people's knockout of the year for a good man. I mean, obviously the Charles Oliveira, not Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, 1 second left knockout, it wins, but that one right there, crazy work, right? This dude is 21-3. 18 of his 21 wins are by finish. 16 of those 18 wins are by knockout. Very exciting stuff, right? And you look at Nurmagomedov, and when you hear the name Nurmagomedov, you think, oh, wrestler, very like really tough, phenomenal wrestling, good top control. No, this dude is a striker. Yes, he can grapple if need be, but this dude got good kicks. He's a good striker. If someone tries to take him down, yes, he can go to the ground, and yes, he does have that like grappling pedigree. You could, good guillotines, ninja chokes. He can do all that, but it's generally from what I've seen is he likes to like duke it out. And who else to do it with than Vinicius? Also, very epic name though, Vinicius Oliveira. Oh, yo, Vinicius that's a hard name. That sounds like you. That really sounds like you be doing that like gladiator stuff. Like that's the name of a gladiator. I feel like, you know. And then going into just opening up the card, Faris Ziam versus Mike Davis. Both guys are coming off a four-fight. They're coming off a four-fight win streak. Both of them are technical on the feet. Both know how to mix it up. Like this, this main card is main carding. This main card is it's must see. I feel like it's must see TV if you haven't seen it. Like if you don't know, now you know type situation, right? But give me your thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like you said. I think that as far as the main card, if you just had any any belt up, this could easily be a pay per view. And we know it's when the UFC heads over to whether it's Fight Island or it's one of these Saudi Arabia cards, they definitely like to bring it. And there's a good roster of there's a bunch of guys on the roster who like those fights, want to be fighting in that area. It's not that far of a journey for them. So it's these cards are usually pretty good, but this one, like you're saying, it's got a lot of really hype fights on it and a lot of quality, and it's just kind of would be a pay per view, but I'm guessing the timing didn't work out on it, and also there's just no champ belt up for this one. Otherwise, it definitely could be. And I mean, it extends down into the prelims and stuff like that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of talented fighters with good records who are down on the prelims. It's maybe not the name value necessarily, but definitely people who could have a future. You could be going back to this card one day and saying, "Oh, that guy was on the prelims, or he was on the early prelims," because there's some good records down there too. So definitely a deep card, one that should be pretty interesting, and one like you said, the main card has some really close fights on it, well matched together.
yeah, and even like you mentioned off the prelims, because there's I think three fights on the prelims that are worth watching or worth keeping an eye on, right? Because on the prelims, there's going to be history made on the prelims. The very first female bout in Saudi Arabia will be happening tomorrow during the Saudi Arabia card. Jasmine Jasdavicius versus Maya Brandon Silva. That's I feel like that's pretty big. That's like a big thing for it to be the first female bout. And then also, I think Jasmine Jasdavicius has potential to become the second Canadian champion? Because I think GSP is the only one to my knowledge.
I'd have to double check that. I feel like there might have been There might have been another one, or like early UFC.
early, like before GSP's time. But yeah,
Let me see.
but while you look that up, yeah, because good submission threat. I think she's ranked number 12 right now, going against Maya Borena Silva. She had a tough loss against Raquel Pennington, but she's good with the submissions as well. I think she's like five submissions, five arm bars, like one behind, like one or two behind Ronda Rousey. That one seems interesting. I'm going for Jasmine Jasudavicius. Then you have Terrence McKinney versus Demir Hadzovic. If you don't know who Terrence McKinney is, if this fight's when this fight comes up, if you're watching this fight, do not go. This is not a fight where you go grab another beer, go use the restroom, like check your like emails, check your messages, whatever, check social media. This dude is all in or all out, all action. He has a 100% finish rate, and it goes either way. Like if he's fighting, he's either winning by KO or finish, or he's losing by KO or a finish. So he is very exciting to watch either way. You're never gonna see a bad Terrence McKinney fight because what I think he has like 16 or 15 finishes. 8 of them are knockouts. Seven of them are submissions, and then topping, the featured prelim is Khan Awfully versus Muhammad Naimov. And my friend, if you don't mind me asking, do you know who Khan Awfully is?
No, I'm not familiar.
I will tell you who Khan Awfully is. He was on the previous season of The Ultimate Fighter. He trains at City Kickboxing, from what I
Oh,
understand, with Israel and Dan Hooker and Kaikar France. From what I remember, really good wrestler, good fighter in general, very pushes the pace, you know what I mean? And guess whose team he was on? Team Grasso. So
is this the guy that Alex is going to be in his corner, or is that another guy? No,
I
that's
think it's
another
a
guy.
different guy. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a different
that's
guy.
some other guy that's fighting Taporia's brother.
Yeah, that I forgot. Wait, I think he's gonna be on the Drickus Strickland card. Like Alexander Topuria, that's like
Yeah.
Ilya's brother,
Mhm.
and then Volkanovski's training partner. But this dude, when I was watching the Ultimate Fighter of this season, when it was Team Grasso versus Team Shevchenko, this dude was really good. Like I was watching him, and he put on for Team Grasso. Like I was like, oh man, I would really like to see this dude in the UFC. We're seeing him now, and I think a lot of people are going to be exposed to him. People are going to see him put in this work. You know what I mean? It's a featherweight fight. I'm telling you, this dude is. I think feature prelim. This is the beginning spots for bigger and better things for Con Offley. Very much looking forward to that fight. But if you had to choose a fight that you are most excited for, which one do you think it would be?
I would say,
Or top three?
as far as stakes and what I think will be the closest one to it's, I think the main event has to be the most interesting to me.
Mhm.
It's there's definitely, like you said, it's I think if we're going for a second, or like something a little bit less obvious, I think that Vinicius Oliveira fight against Said Nurmagomedov, I think that's gonna be a super, like, that might be fight of the night. I think that, you know, the betting odds are favoring Saeed right now, but I think some of that might just be the Nurmagomedov name.
Name? I think
Yeah,
so too.
because Oliver just came off a victory against Ricky Simone, and Ricky Simone is a dude who has a lot. People were looking at him as a lot of potential. Could be the next guy coming up, and then Oliveira came in and kind of stole that shine and put it on his own back there.
Yeah, because with Izzy, yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of really interesting ones where I think the Izzy fight is going to be mine too, where this is the first time Israel Adesanya has fought on a non-title fight since his inaugural season into the UFC. Like since 2019, I think this will be his not first non-title fight since 2019. That's crazy. That's wild. 2019. This man. So when you see that, right? But I think that we're gonna get while I am big on Nasruddin Imavov, and I think hope great things from him, and I think he'll do great things in the middleweight division. First time I saw Nasruddin Imavov was on the first UFC Paris card, where Cyril was headlining that one. I think that was the fight. If I'm not mistaken, that was the fight with Tai Tuivasa. Either that was no, right? I think that might have been Taz, or that might have been the second UFC Paris card. Either one. It was the fight card where my guy Cyril Bongamin himself was headlining, and if I'm not mistaken, Nasruddin Imavov was the co-main event. And since 2020, since that Paris card, I've been. Oh, that's when Nasruddin Imavov kind of showed up on my radar. And this dude, he had. I think he has something special about him. Like when we've seen him like he's technically undefeated in the UFC, right? Whereas in the sense of like four streak, he's on a four fight. He's like 4 wins and like one no contest, 4-0 and one no contest, right? But we saw that with the Jared Cannonier fight. Jared Cannonier is a hard fight for anybody, and we saw him kind of really put it on Jared Cannonier. We've seen him go against of list of other middleweights, and he's put work on them. I think that he is he's a big surging contender. Like I said before, good boxing, good speed, knows how to mix it up well. And then I think his timing is just really like spot on. How he kind of like mixes in his strikes and mixes in everything. But all that to say, I think he could be the next French champion, right? And or if not, fight for a belt. Hey, if he wins the belt and Cyril wins the belt back too, man, that UFC Paris card's gonna go crazy with the fans. You know what I mean? Like fans went crazy just for Cyril, but if he had 2 French champions on that card, that crowd is going to blow the roof off the stadium. Because personally, I think the UFC Paris crowd, the French fans are probably one of the best like fight fans, like what I mean, as far as the crowd goes, because I think it goes the UFC Paris cards, then like UFC London, then uh it's a toss up between T-Mobile Arena and Madison Square Garden, you know. But I think that all that to say, I think Israel Adesanya has a y'all must have forgot moment during this fight. I think he really shows like, hey, there's levels to this, because I think a lot of people have a recency bias towards Israel Adesanya, right? Where I think that how we said our sports vary a what have you done for me lately kind of sport, and I think that Izzy is 3-4, 3 for 4 in his last 4 fights. Israel's lost 3 of his last 4 fights, right? But he's had some hard matchups, you know what I mean? You know, and I think that people are starting to forget how good Izzy was during his peak, right? And all of the things he's accomplished, right? Where I think Izzy really has a moment where he's like, okay, cool, like y'all must have forgot who I was. Let me remind y'all, right? Like, because when you think about all the things Izzy has done in his like he in a very short amount of time, right? He's tied for most UFC knockdowns. Most knockdowns at he's tied for the most knockdowns at middleweight in the UFC's history, right? Also, on top of that, he's like second for most title wins in the middleweight history in middleweight, and we all know who has the most title wins at middleweight. It is is the second pound for pound best fighter of all time, Anderson the Spider Silva. Uh, but the
By the
only
way,
person,
I did look into that Canadian issue. So yes,
yeah.
GSP is the only Canadian champion.
See,
It's
I be knowing my stuff.
Patrick Cote came close against Anderson Silva, but he got injured and lost the fight by TKO. And Rory McDonald came close against Robbie Lawler, but didn't get it done, and then went to Bellator and became Bellator champion.
Mm, man, that's a throwback, Roy McDonald. Yeah, that is a throwback right there. Um, but yeah, also Izzy, if I'm not mistaken, again, is the first two-time middleweight champion because I feel pretty confident on that because unless maybe you're like an early champion because I would say that the middleweight division is so, and I know for some people who might be listening might go, oh, two times like that's not that big. No, it just shows you how difficult middleweight is
Hmm.
because most champions at middleweight, from my recollection, it's already hard to get to the belt and keep the belt, but it's an even more arduous task to lose the belt, work your way back up the mountain and reclaim it again. Because I don't think Robert Whitaker got the belt, but he didn't get it back a second time. Anderson Silva got the belt and held it for forever, but he also didn't get it back a second time, I don't believe. Michael Bisping got the belt towards the end of his career, but he didn't get it back either. He didn't get it a second time either. Let's see. Yeah, Izzy, he got the belt from Robert Whitaker, but and then got it back from Pereira. But I feel like when you look at that's like five of the most notable middleweights of all time, four of the most notable middleweights of all time. But and that's already going back to like when we started watching the sport, high key, because all those guys came right one after another. Anderson, Bobby Knuckles, Anderson, Izzy. Technically, it would be
Yeah, so as far as undisputed, he's the only one to do it twice, but there's a there's a little wrinkle in that slightly because of the GSP happening. So
ah
so we go Dave Manet, Murilo Bustamante, and then Evan Turner, Rich Franklin, Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, Luke
yeah,
Rockhold.
Chris Weidman. Yeah.
Yeah, Weidman, Rockhold, Bisping, but in the meantime, at the end of Bisping, Whitaker is the interim, while Bisping takes the GSP fight. GSP drops it after he wins, and Whitaker is left as he goes from interim right into undisputed, and then at the end, uh, I think it was injury. I think Rob was injured, and in the meantime, they did the Izzy fight where Izzy became interim before he fought Rob the first time, and then it's Izzy undisputed, and then it's Alex, and then back to Izzy, and then Sean, and now Drickus.
Yeah, I feel like the middleweight division has always had a lot of really good talent. as you said already, all those are really big names. And as they kind of like, they kept on switching hands and whatnot. And the people who kind of brought the order, I guess, to the division is Anderson and Izzy. But all that to say with Izzy is that Izzy is, I would say, I don't know how you feel about it, is the consensus second best middleweight of all time throughout the 30 years of the UFC. Only person ahead of him is the legendary Anderson Silva. And I think the reason what makes Izzy the second best of all time is not just the accolades he's had and not just the accomplishments he's had and all the phenomenal things he's done in the UFC, right? In such a short amount of time, not winning the belt in like 20 months or whatever crazy like kind of conditions it was, right? It's what happens, it's the legacies he's left, and plus what happens when you get an Izzy win, right? Izzy could win if Izzy clears Imavov tomorrow. That is just another win in Izzy's already plethora of wins, right? And it does get him closer back to a title, right? It does. He could get a title off that one if he has an impressive win. Izzy loses tomorrow, does not change a thing about his legacy. He's still a future Hall of Famer. He's still one of the best to ever do it. But then here's the thing, right? You know you're the great like the greatest middleweight of this generation and second best of all time when the very few people who have beaten Izzy's high key a kingmaker. If you can, it is a very difficult task to like get a win over Israel Adesanya. But if you can manage to win, every person who's fought in Izzy and won, the very few who've actually fought Izzy and won have become champions. Alex Pereira finished Izzy. Now he became middleweight champion and now is middleweight champion and running that entire division. You think about
I mean, can I
Dricus.
just say though, like I understand that yes, if he loses, it doesn't really change anything about his legacy. I don't love that he said that though. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Nah,
cool with us saying that or other people saying that. I just didn't love that he said it this week cuz like I don't know, are you setting yourself up? Are you giving yourself an excuse? I just don't love that even if I recognize it's true. So I think that's a fact, but I don't I don't know where Izzy's at mentally. Like just looking at it, he's 35 years old, which he's still got plenty left in the tank physically, you would think. But to me, the question mark is mentally. Where is he at mentally? Is he still? What's the motivation? You know, if nothing's going to change if you lose, why are you still doing this? What's important? What's the driver for why fight this fight? Why fight any fights? Because presumably he doesn't have to fight anymore. He's been one of the best paid guys in the UFC for a really long time now, like 6 years or something like that. He's been
one of the biggest stars in our sport.
yeah. So he's got quite not quite McGregor money, but definitely up there. And he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. He isn't out there spending his money recklessly, getting in all sorts of trouble. And you know, I think in all the time that Izzy's been a public facing star, he's been in legal trouble once, I think, of all the times. And even then, it wasn't a very loud legal trouble.
Yeah,
It was just the thing with his car. And
yeah, and that blew over in the next news cycle.
yeah, so to the point where I don't think he's had to answer for that at all, really. So, I mean, what if he's not leaking cash, which it looks like he's taking care of it, he's being smart about it. He's probably got a good build up. He's probably pretty comfortable. What's the thing? Like why do this? And the the part that gives me assurance is that camp specifically. I don't think that if he was giving a half-hearted effort in camp or he didn't have the motivation to do it, I don't think that Eugene would go out there with him. I don't think that he would go because Eugene is one of the most in-demand coaches in the world, and the type of relationship that he seems to have with Izzy is more. It's not quite codependent like that. They both seem like their own men who will come together to work on things, but if one of them views the other one as not being fully committed or the right person for it at the time, I think that they would split ways. So what I'm kind of banking on in this fight, and my expectation is, if Eugene's there, that means that they're taking it seriously, that they trained well for this, and that his head's in the right space. Because I don't think that he would be his coach still if mentally he wasn't there and sharp and prepared to go and push himself to get back to where he was.
Yeah, Eugene is actually said Izzy said that Eugene said like in an interview he said that Eugene was just like, hey bro, if this is not what you want to do, we don't have to do this, right? Like Israel said it in an interview. And I think that I can understand what you're saying. That's like, oh man, why is he saying like it doesn't change your legacy? Are you already looking at the end? But I think that the reason that doesn't give me as much pause is because Izzy has always been a very forward thinking fighter, right? He's always thinking about long term, where compared to like the short term things of, a lot of fighters go, I want to get to the belt. That's the sole purpose. That is my only purpose. I want to get to the belt. And Izzy's always been like, the goal is to get to a belt. It's part of the journey, but it's not my like sole entire goal is to get to the belt. It's, hey, I'm gonna become the greatest middleweight of all time, and just getting the belt is one of the steps to me becoming the greatest of all time. And even once he became the champion and has ran the middleweight division, he's always been like, okay, cool, starting the having building the YouTube presence, and then also getting into this or doing that, and like helping people at the city kickboxing. You know what I mean? Like, and even after the fight that he had with Strickland, he was also like, hey, he took some time away from the sport because he was doing a lot of back-to-back fights, and I think he just realized himself, right, where if you're, because he was one of the most active champions we've had at middleweight, right? And I think that once you're in that go, 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 go mentality, and he took some time to step away and realize, like, you might, after two losses, like, back to back, when you're used to just dominating, you could be like, man, do I still got the sauce like that? Like, I don't know if I got it like that. But then, I think he probably had some people on to kind of like set his head straight. And also, he probably realized himself, like, sat down and actually realized all of the things he's accomplished to this point, where it's like, oh yeah, and just had that realization of like, oh yeah, I am the best, like, of this generation. I am the greatest middleweight of all time. Like, the goal I set out to achieve, I'm already there, and now this is just bonus. So, and not carrying that weight into fight camp of like, oh man, this is my first non-title fight in like 6 years, and like they got me against this contender, and it's not even on like pay-per-view, and I'm not the champion. You know what I mean? Like, all these other unnecessary thoughts, and he's not carrying any. I feel like he's not carrying any of that into the fight camp. He's just like, oh man, I've accomplished everything. I am the closest fighter to Anderson Silva to ever walk the middleweight to walk the earth at middleweight. You know what I mean? Like I've gotten all the accolades, I've gotten all the accomplishments. I'm tied for a lot. Like my name is littered throughout the UFC's history books as far as accomplishments goes, and I've beaten a who's list of like former champions and contenders: Robert Whitaker, uh, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa, Yoel Romero, Anderson Silva. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
where this fight doesn't define his legacy; it just adds to his legacy. And I think that's why I think he just came to that realization as recently. So I think that's probably why he said it and was just like, yeah, because I feel like a lot of people have been asking him that, been like, hey, what's now? What's next? Hey, this is your first fight, and like, not that's not a title fight. Like, hey, you've lost three of your last four. Like, hey, what are we talk? What are we doing? What do you got going on? And he's just like, you know what? Win, lose, or draw, I'm still that guy. I will forever be that guy. So if I win, great, awesome, cool. But if I lose, it is what it. I mean, that's just part of the game. You know what I mean? Because I know, I'm sure he's aware of it too, and I think other people have probably mentioned it to him. Is that with like you mentioned, he's 35, and
Mm.
generally, when you look at the best fighters across the UFC's history, 35, 34 is really when you start seeing that decline. Because in our sport, you only get one peak, right?
Mm.
Machida, I think when you look at the numbers, it was like around like 33, 34 when like the decline, right? I think Anderson was like 35, 36, but still he's still Anderson mother freaking Silva. And just because he's not beating the number one guy in the world, he can still dust like 98% of the world, 98% of middleweights anywhere across the world, or just people in general, right? Like he's still the guy, and he could put hands on pretty much 98% of the population. But when you think about Rashad Evans, all these other guys, generally it's around that like 35, 36, 34 type range. And there's only outliers like John Jones, who's the greatest fighter to ever walk the earth. And he's like, what, 39, 38, whatever it is.
Mm.
And is still putting in work on people like it's easy, like it's no problem. Like he is like, oh, word. Y'all want to test yourself against the greatest fighter to ever live? Make my day. um, like the only other person outside of Anderson Silva, that's I feel like that's got to be a pretty amazing feeling to know that like to be to walk the earth knowing out of 7 billion people, there ain't a person on this planet that you have to fear. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure John Jones has zero fear in any person. Like just to know, hey, 7 billion people on this earth, and you could beat every single person. That's a different level of like sauce slash confidence that you gotta have where you're just walking around life chilling because who is there who's gonna be me. I like Randy Orton said he's the apex predator. No, John Jones is that literal is the literal embodiment of Randy Orton's nickname. John Jones is like, oh man, I am whatchamacallit, Naruto after the fourth Shinobi War. I am Hokage Naruto. Like who's gonna stand before me? But anyway, with all that to say, Imavov, biggest fight of his career. If he beats Izzy, if he can pull it off, he will become champion. Mark my words, right? Because there's only been three people, technically four, but three people who've beaten Izzy Dricus Du Plessis, Sean Strickland, Alex Pereira. All three people went on to become champion after their win against Izzy. Jan Blachowicz, I mean, he was already champion, but
Mm.
Alex, look at the run Alex is on right now. Generational. Dricus Du Plessis, champion. Sean Strickland, former champion. So if you're Imavov right now, I know you got to be feeling hype. You got to be feeling like you got to be making sure everything's clicking on 1,000. Because just to know, hey, if I can beat this guy, destiny is stamped pretty much. Because, and I think it's just because Izzy is so good that you have to elevate your game. If your game's here, you have to elevate your game here to beat him. And if that means if you've elevated your game up to here, that means the next person has got to be exponentially higher for you. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like if you could beat John Jones, if you were to pull off a win against John Jones, you are not pressed about your next fight. Because that means the level that you had to be at to beat John Jones means you are not worried about Alexander Volkov. I wouldn't. but for Izzy, you beat him, you beat Imavov. I think outside of Hamzat, you're in line for another title. I think that's just what comes with being Israel Adesanya. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think like I said, I'm banking on Coach Eugene being the kind of litmus test to say that Izzy is back mentally. He's ready to reset and go again. And I don't think that he'll end up with the title necessarily, but I think he'll make another charge and at least have the shot. So I think that he's going to come out here and he's going to get a, a TKO victory. I think it'll be. I'm going to go second round. I'll go second round TKO for Izzy. It's I kind of like some of the things that Imavov has done, but
He has
his last
potential.
fight against Brendan Allen, I thought was just okay. Uh, and I don't think that Brendan Allen is like a future champion. So it's to me, if that's kind of to me is Imavov's level to this point from what he showed me. I know he had the Jared Cannonier victory, which is for sure the biggest one in his career, but also was that the one directly coming off of when Jared fought Izzy and he didn't do anything?
I'm almost certain.
Yeah. So that could be a limiting factor too, because Jared on the way up was having all this momentum and he believed in himself. And it really looked like once he got to that fight and he was just taking pictures and not committing to action and pushing it, he kind of lost some of that self belief. And I don't know if trying to rebound off of that when you've lost confidence in yourself is really a rough road. So I think Imavov is good. I don't think he's like top like 3 or 4 guys in the division, guys who can win a title type good.
Mm. I think Imavov is good. I agree. I think I like Imavov, and I think he's good, and I think he can be a top 3 guy. But I don't know about champion level yet. I think we'll see. I think I will see / we will see where his ceiling is after tomorrow. Because I think that at least for me, I'll be certain if he goes up there and has like a hard fought battle, I'll be like, okay, yeah, you could possibly do it. But if he goes out there and gets like cleaned out, we'll see. We'll see. But another fight that I'm like really interested in that I'll take you on that. I think it'll be a second round finish for Izzy.
Yeah.
the MVP fight. Oh, to answer your last question about why is he doing this, I
Mm.
really think it's just because Izzy enjoys fighting. I think he's a fighter's fighter at heart. Where it's just like, yes, I've accomplished everything. I have a crazy amount of money. I'm a multimillionaire. I have everything I could ever want. And I really think he's just doing it for the love of the game. He's just that passionate about fighting and being the best, where he's just like, oh yeah, this is what drives me. Like I think he's reached
Mm.
a point in his career where it's not about the belt, it's not about the money. While those things are nice, it's more about legacy and just having a good fight. But ha- speaking of good fights, the MVP versus Shara Bullet fight, that is going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a good fight, but I don't think it's going to be a close fight.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same. I think that this is going to produce like a big time knockout, like water cooler type moment. I think this is going to be your finish of the night, unless maybe Izzy tops it in the main event. I think this very likely is the big finish, the big clip of the event here. Uh, I just think the size isn't really going to matter that much, in my opinion, even though MVP's coming up, because this is going to be an all striking affair pretty much. And Shara Bullet has never shot a takedown in the UFC at all. So I don't think he's going to start now. To me, he's not that type of guy. Uh, I think that he's going to engage in the striking battle and try and go forward. And if there's a single person who that would be ill advised against, especially when you don't have awesome depth perception, it's MVP. Like Ian Gary, who is now a top five guy in the weight class, was in there with MVP and very quickly decided, okay, striking with this guy isn't fun or going to be worth it or my path to victory. And everyone
He's a
regard,
striker,
yeah, Ian Gary's a striker and pretty big for the
became a
weight class.
wrestler.
Yeah.
He's a striker that became a wrestler.
So I think this is some old like this is gonna look more close to a Bellator MVP fight, in my opinion, where he does something nuts and all of us are sitting here like, can you believe that this guy's in the UFC? This guy's amazing. And I think that might be why MVP took this, even in a weight class that's not his own. And he said before that he's planning on going back to 170. I think he sees a really good opportunity against a ranked guy in the weight class ahead to get a big victory and ride that momentum into his own weight class and kind of recharge his push back towards the title.
Because I think for this fight, I think this fight will be a good fight. Like I said, I just don't think it may necessarily be a close fight. I think it's gonna be similar to remember MVP's introduction into the UFC was him styling on Kevin Holland, right? Like Kevin Holland's a really good fighter, but MVP's strike, he's so cerebral in his approach to fighting, and he's so elusive and so like quick, where he was just going whoop, pop, whoop, pop, pop, pop. Like it was, it looked like a video game level of what he was doing, right? And I think that it's going to look similar to that just because MVP has a habit or has a skill set where he is very good at what he does, and so good at what he does, he makes people who are equally as good at the same skill set jump ship and try a different skill set.
Hmm.
Where MVP is a very elite striker, and he has an ability to make other elite strikers turn into grapplers. just because of how he approaches the fight and how good he is. Because he has, when you see MVP fight, he has that like kind of karate, freestyle karate kind of like stance slash background where he's will sit there and you'll think, oh, he's out of range. And he closes the distance so fast and gets those strikes in where we saw that with the Kevin Holland fight. Kevin Holland was so frustrated during that fight. Because even when we were watching the fights, it didn't look like he was in that close of a range, but he closed the distance so quickly and just boom, elbow, close distance, boom, straight. Oh, close distance, boom, 1-2, right? Like, and you're sitting there almost just taking photos because you're just like, I didn't even how, how did he close the distance that fast? Because he says it all the time. People don't realize how fast he is until you get into the cage with him. Because you can watch tape, you can train with other people, but just like how Alex Pereira has like just superhuman strength and Rob has superhuman cardio, MVP feels like he has superhuman speed, where his just agility, the explosiveness in his strikes is just so next level, where even the best guys in the division who are strikers are like, nah, let me try different. Let me try something else. Because really, I feel like Ian Gary would have lost his O to MVP instead of Shavkat if they would have kept it on the feet. You know what I mean? Like, and Gary was very smart in realizing, oh, I'm going to lose. Hey, let me go for the shots and try to hold him down. I think with Shara Bullet, that matchup, right? When we look at it, Shara Bullet, it's an exciting matchup, right? When you look at it on paper, right? Shara Bullet's 15-0, 4-0 in the UFC, 12 KO, 12 of his 15 fights, 12 of his 15 wins are by knockout, right?
Mm.
And you look at MVP, 22-3, technically before Ian Gary, 22-2. He's 1-1 in the UFC, but his has 13 first round finishes, a 10-time world kickboxing champion, and has won 8 of his 10 fights, right? When you see all that, you're like, man, this dude's really good. But I think, because right now he's a slight underdog, right, against Shara Bullet. But I think it's mainly because recency bias. And people see 1-1 in the UFC and they go, or if you saw both fights, you go, oh, he had a really strong performance against Holland and like an okay performance against Gary. Well, Shara Bullet has just walked in with the super kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean swashbuckling kick down the door fight style where he's just moving forward, throwing knees, punches, kicks, hitting people with the double, that double backhand, just going deep, deep. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you see all that and you see, because MVP doesn't necessarily have the like knockout one punch KO power of an Alex Pereira or a Tom Aspinall or like a Francis Ngannou, right? Or an Ilya Taporia. His is more, I think, closer to Cyril Gahn, where it's like death by 1,000 cuts. And if the moment comes, like the flying knee, right? Yeah, if the moment comes, he could put you down with one shot, but that's not necessarily his like MO. His MO is like, hey, I'm about to just style on you and just overwhelm you with volume, similar to how Cyril does. Like Cyril could knock out any person really, but it's more of like drown them with volume. And I think that Shara Bullet, I don't think Shara's going to go for a takedown. And I think he's going to want to keep standing. And I really think MVP's been looking for his signature highlight reel knockout in the UFC because he has plenty of them in Bellator. But he's always talked about like, man, I'm still looking for my like signature UFC highlight reel knockout. And I think he may get it right here in this fight. And Yeah, he would charge back up for welterweight, or he might be in middleweight. I think he might stay at welterweight. But if Charbullet gets the win, oh man, his popularity is gonna skyrocket.
See, I don't know. I think it'll be big, but I don't know if it'll change much. I mean, I still don't like he's ranked somehow, but I still think if you put him up against any grappler in the division, he loses. So, I mean, you know, it's this is some good fun for sure,
It
but
is definitely a
I
fun
think
fight.
between the two guys, even though MVP's significantly older, I would still bet my money on MVP to
All the
win a
way.
title before I bet on Shara Bullet to win a title.
And also Charbullet can only fight in like it's very limited to where he can fight.
Yeah.
So
But I
I
mean
do agree.
even if he was able to fight anywhere in the world, I just think MVP
I
is so much more well-rounded and in my
Oh,
opinion a better
absolutely.
striker also.
Absolutely. I think MVP wins this fight by spectacular knockout in the second round. And somewhere during middle to end of the second round, maybe early third round. Like
Yeah. It's that just seems most likely to me. It's okay, so the next fight I don't think is going to make it out of the first round.
absolutely
Sergey
not.
Pavlovich, Jairzinho Rosenstrike. I think I think Sergey's got actually more tools than he even shows, really. I think that he can do other things, but he's just one of those guys who falls in love with the KO and commits to it. And I do like Jairzinho. When he first came into the UFC, I really thought that he was going to be something. But at 36 years old, with the losses that he has, I I just don't know if he's going to be a guy who competes for a title. I still think that he's good. I just think he's more of like a gatekeeper. You got to be if you can beat him, okay, now you're a guy who's hanging out in that top 5 area.
A true contender.
Yeah. It's a guy who can go up and fight for the belt and it's not ridiculous. So,
Hmm.
I got Pavlovich in the first round. Not that I don't think it'll be competitive. I think it'll be wild and crazy because that seems to be how Sergey chooses to engage. I just think it'll actually work out this time for Sergey, even though it hasn't the last couple of times.
And I'm actually on the opposite. I think it's gonna be Biggie Boy by first round knockout. But I think it's gonna be where we do agree is I think it's gonna be a lot of chaos and
Yeah,
a lot of a lot of fun chaos. I think July 4th is gonna come early tomorrow, and that will be their fight is gonna be just fireworks. Because like we said, the reason why I say that too is because I understand why Sergey is so in love with his hands,
mhm.
right? I would be too if had 15 fights, 15 knockouts, and all 15 of those knockouts were in the first round. I'm gonna be like, yo, run up and get done up. That's how I would feel going into every fight. Be like, bro, like, talk crazy if you want. Like, hey, you still gotta get it. Even if someone's like, I'm gonna take it down, I'm gonna do some jiu-jitsu. You still gotta get in close enough to take me down and watch me just land a. But this is the thing, right? Because I think Sergey's best weapon is he goes 1-2-1, right? Like he'll go jab, straight, jab, right? Or going off of like where like some people be like, hey, with the jab straight and then go for a hook or try to go with these crazy. I think he's going with that the throw people off that rhythm and being like boom, 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 and hitting people with it. And it knocks people, obviously. He has crazy knockout power, but I think he's not that he's becoming a one-trick pony, and I'm sure he has more tricks than he shows, but I think that a combination of the two hard, I think he was getting to the point where since he is knocking everyone out in the first round with his hands, he's just like, oh, all I gotta do is run forward and just land a like a one hitter quitter and send them out, send them packing. But it's like, what do you do if you don't knock them down? You know what I mean? Or what do you do if someone has a different plan? Right? We saw that with Tom Aspinall. What do you do if you run into someone who has equal knockout power? Right? Saw that with Tom Aspinall, and then, but I didn't give him too much slack about that because Tom Aspinall, outside of Cyril Gahn and John Jones, is the best heavyweight at heavyweight. Heck, he is the interim champion, right? Like we
Mm.
talk about this all the time. Outside of John Jones, Cyril and Tom are both 1A and 1B. And then it's everybody else like a country mile behind them. So it's like it's kind of hard to give him hard on time on that. But then he got styled on by Alexander Volkov. Remember, Volkov's out here getting his hair combed in between rounds. You know how demoralizing that is? To be fighting a guy and he be kicking your butt so badly where his coaches are like, hey, champ, we got to make sure your hair look good for the post-fight interview. I would be so offended in the corner. I'd be like, do you think this fight is that easy where you could take water breaks and get your hair fixed while we're fighting? No, I need you to know you're in a dog fight. Like, this man, that was... and it happened every single round. You know how pissed I would be?
Well, thankfully, he won't have to worry about that in this fight.
This dude was hitting him with all kind of kicks and punches and was just like, and then they'd be like, all right, back to your corners. And then Volkov's just staring at him, getting his hair combed, getting his hair fixed while someone's giving him water. And then Sergey is sitting there just like, oh, it's another round, huh, guys? Like, I think that, he left the ring obviously very upset after that fight for good reasons. But like, when you have two hard losses like that, right? You have one of two ways to go. Do you evolve your skill set to add something else in there? Like maybe kicks, elbows, maybe some judo tosses, maybe some wrestling. Like, you know what I mean? To kind of keep your name, to keep you relevant in the division and to continue your scale, your like progression upwards. Or does these two hard losses, because he lost in the first round against Tom and then just got styled on for 15 minutes straight by a guy who he was set to beat, to a guy he was favorited to win against. Does that make him or does that break him? Does that bring him in the sense of like he's just like, why can't I get it together? Even like, oh, I just gotta just keep moving forward and just land a punch. But I think if you're in that kind of mindset where you're just desperate for a win, and I do think whoever loses slowly kind of fades out of everyone's they kind of slowly are getting pushed off of the island of relevancy, right? Like they're gonna be on the beach by that time. If you're like in the center of the island of relevancy and you're just slowly getting pushed out to the water, you know what I mean? Onto the boat and then off to sailing you go. You know what I mean? I think that can happen to whoever loses this fight just because there's so little going on at heavyweight right now, and the depth of the depth of the roster the depth of the roster is so shallow where if you're trying to fight for a title, if you're Sergey, you need an exciting knockout. Because if not, what's gonna happen, or chances are what may happen, is Tom fights John. if that happens, right? Let's say Tom wins. John Jones is going to want a rematch, right? John beats Tom if that happens, right? John's going to either retire or it might fight Cyril. Let's say Cyril beats John. Cyril becomes champion. Let's say John retires or John wants that rematch, get that rubber match. Boom. Let's say John Jones wins and he retires. Now it's John Jones. Now it's Tom Aspinall and Cyril gone. And if Cyril beats Tom, Tom might get a rematch. If rematch happens, Tom beats Cyril. Cyril's gonna get the rubber match. You know that's like 3 years. That's like 2 years worth of fights right there. 3 years worth of fights. Will it happen in that exact order? No. Who knows? No. And we may get a diamond in the rough at heavyweight who surges and cements his name in this 4-man tournament, this 3-man tournament that's going on at the top of heavyweight. You need this fight, or you're slowly going to get pushed off the island of relevancy and may become a gatekeeper, right? Jairzinho Rosenstrike, again, I agree with you. He's a elite kickboxer. He's very good. He's very talented kickboxer, right? And he has the power to put away anybody. We've talked about this. The number of strikes he has, the number of finishes, a lot heavy hands, a lot of power. 15 wins, 13 of those 15 are by knockout, 9 first-round finishes. I think that what gives it away is Sergey's had a lot of unfortunate luck where I think it's going to be more unfortunate because the thing that Sergey depends on most is the power in his strikes isn't a factor for Jairzinho potentially because they both trained at ATT together. So generally when you see fighters who've trained together, they know what to watch out for. They know what you're about to do. And if all you got is strikes or punches, and Jairzinho knows that, he's a very good kickboxer. He's going to stay out of the way of the punches and just kick you in your grill. Now you're looking crazy again. Or what if he dodges, he waits for you to go 1-2-1 and then steps in and goes, yeah. And again, Jairzinho Rosenstrike is known for the most under 30 seconds knockout. So what if you go out there and get knocked out and flatlined in like under 30 seconds? That's 3 losses in a row. That's tough. I say Jersey, but I don't. Who knows? I think it will be exciting. I think they will just go and throw hands. And I say Biggie Boy by first round knockout. Big first round knockout.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I just feel like I'm probably going on the other side just because we did this before with Yuri and Jamal, and I picked the better kickboxer, and it ended up not mattering. So I'm gonna flip flop the other side now and see if the crazy guy wins.
You know, it's crazy. I went for the crazy guy in the last time, and now I'm flip flopping and being like, let me go to the more technical guy. because Rose, like, I mean, Jairzinho. I had to make sure I got his name right. Jairzinho. The thing about him is his best weapon is his jab. Because in most of them when you see him fight, he has that popping jab that has a lot of power on it. And I don't know. I think that Yuri is crazy, but crazy good with a lot of skills. Like Yuri has like 17 different. If he's a Tekken fighter, he's got like 20 moves. His list set is very deep of all the different combinations you could do. Sergey has only showed us that he has really good boxing and a lot of power. But if all you got is boxing or all you've shown us is boxing, and you're going against a kickboxer who's equally as strong and equally as good, you're riding a 2-fight skid where you got put out cold first round, and then you get styled on in your very next fight. Sounds like I think I might go for technical with a lot of skills over crazy with one skill. You know what I mean? That's just
we'll see how it goes this time. But next one, Saeed Nurmagomedov, Vinicius Oliveira. I think that we're headed to a decision. I think that it'll be 29-28 Vinicius Oliveira in a really entertaining fight. I think this will be fight of the night.
See, in my opinion, I think this is going to be. I could definitely see a decision happening with this. I think this is a first round. I think this could be a first round finish uh, for either side because I think Vinicius is going to because he's the underdog. He's going against Nurmagomedov. He's a striker. Both Vinicius has a style where he's all action all the time. He's coming for that action, coming for the smoke. He wants all of it. He's a chimney. Uh, I think he's coming out of the gates, guns blazing. I think he's coming off the blocks, guns blazing. He's going in there, just finger on the trigger with knees, hooks, the fly. I think he might try that flying knee again. I think he comes out and Saeed knows how to strike. He has good kickboxing. He has really good kicks. I think they get into a crazy like striking exchange, and who knows, Vinicius gets it, or they get into a crazy striking exchange. Saeed notices the moment to like jump for like a guillotine and like closes out the night, or let's say boom boom, Saeed gets hurt. He's up against the cage being like this, and then or he knocks Saeed down, and then Vinicius jumps on top, getting overly eager, and Saeed catches him in a submission. I think it might be one of those type things. So I think it's either one, either way. I think it's gonna be a very close fight, like you said, but I think it might be. I think it's either gonna be a first round finish or a decision. I think they go all out in the very beginning, or it's just a crazy, well thought out battle. But yeah, I think this one has a chance to be probably our fight of the night, or
Did,
one of the performances of the night. But I'm saying either first. I'm gonna say I'm sticking with first round finish for Vinicius,
okay.
but I think it could be either way.
All right. And then last one on the main card, Forrest, Forrest Ziam, Mike
Mhm.
Davis.
I got Ziam. I think I think it's either gonna be a early second round stoppage or early third round because that's just my guess. But I'm gonna say I'm gonna put my chips on Ziam because he had a beautiful knockout during UFC Paris. That was impressive. So that's about all I can go off of.
Okay. So I'll take the other side. I'll go Mike Davis. I'll say by decision. So Mike Davis, even though he's 32, he's had 13 professional fights. He's only lost twice, and those two losses are his UFC debut. He lost a submission to Gilbert Burns in 2019. No shame in that. And on the Contender Series in season 2, he lost a decision to Sadiq Yusuf, who has now come on and established himself as a real like top 15 fighter in the UFC. So I think, and that was also back in, when was that? 2018. So I think that this is the renewal of Mike Davis. I think he's coming on at 32 years old. I think he's going to get it done by decision, and he's going to start this long streak, and it's at 155. So he's already at four four wins in a row in the UFC at 155. So you know how it goes at 155. There's not many guys who have a streak more than like 2 or 3. So
Yeah,
if he gets this one, start to build some momentum, maybe have a moment. He's in a good place kicking off the card, kicking off the main card. So this could be a nice little launching pad for Mike Davis.
Hey, I guess we shall see. Cause I think Mike Davis is a good fighter. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. I think we'll see. I think if Mike Davis wins, I think it will be by decision. But I feel like I'm just tossing a chip in the air and seeing if it
Well,
lands heads.
yeah, it's
But
we'll see where it lands, and then when they land, we'll come
yep,
back and we'll see how they did.
yep, that's our song. That's our show. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us and enjoying the show. Hope you're liking it. Come back next week, like you said. Checking us out. Subscribe, share, like, tell a friend, write a comment. Let us know how you're feeling about it. And yeah, see y'all next week.
Like,
Bye.
subscribe, comment, do all that stuff.
Yes. Yes, yes. I couldn't remember if I said it or not, but yes, yeah, do that. Enjoy
Help
the
us
fights.
grow the show because
Yeah.
we're starting to get some momentum.
Yeah, we're starting to get some traction out here. So yeah, let people know. Rock with your boys. Rock with us. All right, bye.